All right, everyone, welcome to today's Tuesday Times Roundtable. I appreciate you being here. Before we begin today's program, I want to make sure that you know about the program that's tomorrow that you have some of the small flyers around the room for. This is part of a new sister series, if you will, to the Tuesday Times Roundtable series. It's called Worldview, and the Worldview series is being led by our global learning librarian, Holly Morganelli. And so if you like the Tuesday Times You'll also like the Worldview because we also get to discuss engaging global topics. And the Worldview series has the added component of focusing on information literacy and how to find good sources and analyze and evaluate information that you need to make good informed judgments about these global world issues. So tomorrow's topic is cybersecurity, a developing global threat. And the person that will be leading that discussion is Shamoil Shipchandler, who is the Regional Director for the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. So that's pretty neat. That is tomorrow, Wednesday at 12:30. That's in the Green Library, so don't come here, GL 220. And if you are a Global Learning Medallion student, or if you're not yet but want to sign up for the Global Learning Medallion, as is the case with the roundtables and all other events hosted by our department, that's something that counts as points towards your award. So if you have questions about that, let me know, or let Holly know, and we hope to see you there tomorrow. I'll be there. So I'm glad to have back a returning Tuesday Times Roundtable moderator. Scott Fingerhut is a 3-time Professor of the Year, serving for the past decade as Assistant Director of Trial Advocacy here at FIYou's College of Law. At the college, he teaches trial advocacy, criminal and civil pretrial practice, criminal procedure, and criminal law. He's also, by Dean's appointment, a faculty fellow in FIYou's Honors College. And there he leads a year-long undergraduate seminar while also serving as the director of Honors' pre-law program. Professor Fingerhut is also a full-time trial lawyer, devoting his practice to criminal defense and the defense of applicants seeking admission before the Board of Bar Examiners and lawyers that are facing potential bar discipline. He is currently in his second term as the chair of the Florida Bar Criminal Procedure Rules Committee and on the Bar's Committee on Student Education and Admission to the Bar. He has also served as the chair of the Florida Bar Criminal Law Section, president of the Miami chapter of Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, chair of the Dade County Bar Association Criminal Law Committee, and a Dade County designee to the Miami-Dade County Mayor's Mental Health Task Force. He's a frequent lecturer and writer on liberty and justice matters. Professor Fingerhut has co-authored books, Drunk Driving and Related Vehicular Offenses, and co-authored a chapter, Conflicts of Interest and Other Pitfalls for the Expert Witness. He received his undergraduate degree in American Government and Music from the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, and his law degree from Emory. So all in all, a very distinguished figure in the field of law, and at FIYou, Professor Scott Fingerhut.
Okay, welcome everybody. I picked today in particular to spend time with you. This was the last Tuesday roundtable available before next Tuesday's election. So normally I would begin by asking, why are you here? Okay, so other than the sandwiches, which is not a horrific reason to attend any function. When you saw the title, other than just coming to a Tuesday roundtable, why this one? Anybody have anything that they want to share? You don't have to. Because it's important to me that at least you leave with some sense of why you came here today. Decisions are only ever made by the people who show up, the people in the room. So maybe it's easier to begin by telling you why I'm here, why I picked today. This is I don't know what word to use, what adjective to use. This is an emotional time in America. And I don't know if any of you see it as more confusing or sad or disappointing pointing. I'm not here to put words in any of your mouths. But the word disease broken down, dis-ease, to not be at ease, that's how I feel about certain parts of my country right now. And, I'm pretty grown in the winter, sort of, as we speak. And it's not a pleasant feeling now, and if any of you are having any thoughts about it, which I would hope you would have thoughts about it if you're in the room today here, maybe you're having similar feelings of your own. Google tracks searches, and you can research who is searching and for what they're searching about. And the general searches about anxiety have not been this high in 12 years, I think. Anxiety in all of its forms. And not just over the usual things, like test anxiety or trying to drive on the Palmetto or whatever it is, but over larger constructs like government itself. I remember I was only 10, right? And I obviously didn't know exactly what was going on. It was 43 years ago. It was October 20th, 1973. I remember that like Hurricane Andrew, right? Like August 24th. You remember that. President Nixon was having a really rough time, and there was a special prosecutor appointed to prosecute him over some pretty serious malfeasance that ended up having him step down from the presidency. It's not like quitting your job at Cold Stone. And it was a Saturday night, and then there weren't that many sources of information then. You had your 3 channels and your public television, maybe 4, and that was it. And they came on the television to report that the president had fired the special prosecutor, Archibald Cox, which led to the resignations of the Attorney General, Elliot Richardson, and the Deputy Attorney General, William Ruckelshaus. They were gone. It's called the Saturday Night Massacre. And I don't really remember having a huge clue about what was going on, but I remember, even as a 10-year-old, that I was scared, even though I couldn't really articulate why. So, mostly today, it's a little selfish, I'm sorry. I wanted to be with you today, this final Tuesday before the election. And I wanted to see how you're doing. I wanted to see how we, as a university community, are doing. And to reassure you that the answer to the dis-ease is here. It's in this room. And that most likely you have proof of that on you right now. That's my job in the next hour or so. So let me ask that you think on what is the value of your education here at school, at FIYou, in its grandest scope. If I were to ask you, and you were genuinely to respond, which I know is a stunning proposition, what is the value of your education, and why is the answer to that question so vitally important? And while we're at it, I suppose I should ask the necessary corollary of that, is what kind of people get to come to this room here today and wonder about that? What kind of people get to ask those kinds of questions in the first place? So let's start with talking about the country that we are and the type of government that we chose. We could have chosen a lot of different types of government, and we had certain options. There was many discussions over it, not just in the Federalist Papers, but I have several of my honor students here, so some of this we've spoken about before. Benjamin Martin famously asking in the South Carolina delegation, why should we trade one tyrant 3,000 miles away for 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away? An elected legislature can trample a man or woman's rights just as easily as a king can. When they called Washington back from Mount Vernon, he had every opportunity to be king of whatever they were going to call us. King of England West, King of America. We chose to be a democratic republic. That is the organization of government that we chose. And a democratic republic is governed by whom? Okay, but we can't just abstract it for today. Not for today. Not a week out. Okay? Because the people with the capital P is you. That is the American experiment. It's a decision that we made long ago, and we were the first such organization of people with the capital P ever to have thought to write that down, that that's how it's going to be. And understandably, in the hustle of our everyday, out there, off campus, it's easy, too easy, to lose sight of some fundamentals. Two in particular, to me. One is that all lives have equal value. And that's a tough one to remember. Because most of us are just trying to get through our own day. And see if maybe the Cubs can push it to 7 tomorrow. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? All lives have equal value. And from Anais Nin, the second fundamental, which is easy to lose sight of, is that we don't always see things as they are. We usually see things as we are. And I don't know. I knew of these things when I was younger and I was in school, but there's just too much going on and worry about making sure you can get your classes and get your grades and graduate and get your degree and then go on to the next school that you want to go to and be able to pay your bills. And so maybe all of this is just a happy older person's luxury. I don't know. As human beings, all of us are prone to bias. Even prejudice. We are prone to be different. So what we choose to do about those differences, what we choose to do with those differences, I'm sorry if this just sounds too simple. That choice is up to us. We are a self-governing people. I carry my little book around me wherever I go. Every one of my students, I've been teaching here 16, 17 years. I apologize. Every student I've ever had at this university has bought this book. So let's go deep now. Of these differences that we are prone to, how many of them that we can identify between us, these differences that clearly separate ourselves from one another, how many of these differences are not fundamental? How many of these differences are of our own creation? In observing ourselves in our honor seminar, 1, 2, where'd it go? 3. We push ourselves to talk about these paradigms, the lenses through which we view our world and how they are not necessarily how things really are. So I just ask you to consider, since we're just talking today, right? Pick your color: white, black, brown, rich, poor, liberal, conservative, other, gay, straight, trans, other. We created that labeling, also the people, and we created, and I don't know which was created first, right? There are tests we create based on indicators and variables, and sometimes, we end up following the chicken or the egg. But we created the attitude towards these differences also. And I would submit to you that many of them, the ones that are of our own creation, those are name and form, not what is fundamentally true about us. Gold takes lots of lovely shapes. Some of you may have some of it on you now. A necklace, a ring, a bracelet, an anklet, a keychain. But gold never forgets that its fundamental nature is gold. So there is a fallacy to the separateness that human beings, I don't know Americans in particular or people in America in particular, but it feels like that now. Seeing the world as distinct or as different from ourselves as our default position, from my perspective, is problematic. And that, rubs up against our core human need to be validated, to be sure. Every one of us in this room is here for practical purpose, to make sure that we are seen, that we are heard, and that what we say to someone somewhere matters. But separateness is a fallacy nonetheless. And at times like these, a week out, they can be especially dangerous ones. Throughout history, there have been people far more eloquent than me talking about this fallacy of separateness. Thurgood Marshall, you may know, groundbreaker in his own right. After he had retired from the court, 6 months before he died, this was Independence Day 1992. It was white people's Independence Day 1992. Most descendants of original American sin, whether African or Jamaican or other parts of the Caribbean, they would recognize Juneteenth before July 4th as their Independence Day. Even after the 14th Amendment, right? It took 2.5 years for word to get down to Galveston, Texas, as you may know, that, hey, slavery's over. You guys can leave now. And they asked the same questions that my people, the Jews, asked when they were liberated. Where will we go? So in trying to make a home for all of us, Thurgood Marshall was in Philadelphia accepting the Liberty Medal. And he was saying, listen, I've done all these things. I did Brown versus Board. I was on the Supreme Court for a while. And unfortunately, our work still isn't done. Even in the 90s, I still know black people who, whenever they go to a new city, they never have to hold their hand up in front of their face to know what color they are, just by how they're being treated by others. And he spoke, and he said, he was dead within 6 months of saying this. He said, the law is great. The law can knock down some walls. The law can open some doors. But that's not what's going to bring us real freedom. Real freedom is when people build bridges between one another. And it takes a risk to be able to build the bridge and then push yourself across it and force yourself. It's not the human default position to force yourself to understand the fundamental commonalities between us. Through many sermons, ultimately culminating in some pretty significant speeches, when Martin Luther King spoke about an inescapable network of mutuality between us, what he referred to as a single garment of destiny, he's talking about the fallacy of separateness. Now, somehow, in some very real sense, I can't become everything that I'm destined to become until somehow I facilitate in some way your becoming what you want to become. Quoted Donne, and about no man or woman being an island. But if my students in the room will forgive me, my favorite discussion, for lack of a better word, of this fallacy of separateness, I wear around my neck. And it's the first line of Frost's Mending Wall. Any English majors in the room? Any poetry majors in the room? Anybody know who Robert Frost? Well, okay, a couple. All right. The poem is called Mending Wall. The famous line from the poem that most people know is, "Good fences make good neighbors." First line to that poem, and as E told you, one of my majors at school was music, so, when I realized I wasn't going to grow up and be Willie Mays or Jimmy Connors or Billy Joel, and I had to go to real school and get a real job, so I ended up in law school. And I still try and make class. When school is working, there's nothing like great school. So the degree to which at least I can leave thinking that it has sung a tiny bit, I'll give myself a decent grade for the day. The first line of that poem is, "Something there is that doesn't love a wall." Could have written that line in tons of different ways. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. And so there's this rock wall between his property and his neighbor's property. And over the course of the year, something there is that doesn't love it. The weather doesn't love it. The animals don't love it. People sit on it. The boulders move. They fall down. And once a year, he and his neighbor get together and they walk the wall together. It's the one time a year they really get to spend any time together to mend the wall. And Frost is wondering, why do we even really need this wall? I mean, sometimes you may need a wall, but I've got apples on my side and you've got pine trees on your side. It's not like you have cows and they're going to climb over and, eat my crop. Are we walling something in? Are we walling something out? What's the fundamental purpose of the wall? And he wants to talk to his neighbor about it, but all the neighbor can do is keep saying, "Listen, my father taught me good fences make good neighbors. Like, you stay on your side of the damn fence and I will stay on mine, and let's build that thing sturdy again and see you next year." From what Frost was trying to teach him, the neighbor didn't get it. Each of these, and you can see it in other areas as well, in umpteen songs in the universe. Each of these is an antidote to that endless circling that if you observe, too many people, even perhaps some of your colleagues, find themselves wrapped up in. The anxiety of things will come tomorrow. No notion, no realization of any indwelling, of any kind of grounding center which has to hold the center, has to hold for a democratic republic to survive. You guys are looking at me like, all right, you were telling us how we were going to FIYou, save the world. What are you talking about? It's like when I'm in court and I start talking too much like school and the judge looks at me like, hey, Scott, we got to go, so let's talk about what we're going to do with this case and move on. So what does all of this have to do with you? It is said, since I was not there, that when Benjamin Franklin was asked, what kind of government does our Constitution give us? He is reported to have replied, a republic, if we can keep it. And so I wanted to be with you today because, and this is not to be corny, we didn't have to do this. And Eric knows, when this came out, you sent the email in August. I don't know when you sent for this semester. It was early, in July, I don't remember. Right away, I wanted this day. I didn't give him my Times article until like 15 minutes ago, because I couldn't pick the one I wanted best. But I knew even 3 months ago, that today was a day that I wanted us to be together. Because there's one place I know that I can go and not worry about keeping my republic. And it is here in university. I can't say that across the street. I can't say that in the Gables. I can't say it on Brickell. I can't say it in any of our courthouses. I can't say it in anyone's home. I don't even know if I can say it always in my home. There was an English poet, John Masefield, who wrote that there are few earthly things more beautiful than a university. A place where those who have ignorance may strive to know, and where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see. My mother, before she passed, taught me, tried to teach me, that almost all human activity is governed by two things and two things alone, or versions of them, love or fear. And fear, most of all, is a killer of rational thought. It'll kill it, it'll stop it dead in its tracks. And our democratic republic was not created so much so that our personal desires wouldn't become the laws of the land. It was created more so to protect us from our biases and our prejudices. This country was born on the fervent prayer, if you would, of fear of unchecked power. So we came up with this notion of a self-governing people to put us together, to keep us together, to compel us to communicate with one another, and to ensure that even if, maybe especially when, we do not agree, that at least we do our best to understand where each of us is coming from. If we have the courage that Ben Franklin was talking about, and Thurgood Marshall, and Martin Luther King, right, and Frost, to reach out, to take a risk every now and then out of our comfort zone. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's, sorry about that. Blow your ears off on that one. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has a great new book out, and he talks about having the courage to look ugliness in the face. And when you do that, it is guaranteed that we will accomplish far more precisely as a democratic republic is destined to do, so that America, as a living, breathing, changing entity may function for more and more of everybody, of the people. So where does that kind of courage exist? And that is why I wanted us to be here today. It's why I'm here, and I submit to you, it's why you are here. I chose a one-pager from the New York Times, right? And even it's a couple years old, right? When was it? Was it written in 2012? Okay. But man, when I found it, it was right on the money. Having information is not, cannot, and will never be the same thing as being informed. In an age of information overload, facilitating ever-increasing demands on our attention, are all of the people of whom we are aware and not really that much smarter for all of the information that they have and have access to, or does it just seem that way? Anybody in this room ever smoke and quit smoking? Anybody? Look at all you healthful people. You know, I've spoken to a lot of people who've quit and tried to quit smoking. And what they basically say is, I don't know if I'm going to live longer or if it just feels that way. Because the days are long, man, when you want to smoke and you can't. You know, Daniel Levitan wrote a piece in The Guardian called Why the Modern World is Bad for Our Brain. It's a phenomenal article if you haven't read it. It's a quick read, and I'm pretty sure he's right. Mere consumption, to be a mere consumer of information accessed, superficial at best, is not to create, is not to engage, to do what the best teachers I ever had, and what I try and do in my classes, not always successfully, but I try. The best teachers I ever had made sure to show me where to look. They did not tell me what to think or tell me what to see. So let me re-ask you, what is the value of your education? How are FIYou going to save the world? And how do I know this? As simple or as complex as it seems, the short answer to that question is by doing this. By being here. By engaging. A week or so ago, Rachel Maddow dug up this incredible Justice Souter interview, also from 2012, this talk on the perils of the erosion of civic knowledge and what we should worry about at night. He's no longer on the court. And what he was talking about was the importance of a smart people. Not a people that necessarily agree. Not a people that spend the same, that look the same, that love the same, that live the same, that eat the same. But a smart people, an informed people, will save the world. And ignorant people will not and cannot remain a free people. There's a saying in law called res judicata, that the thing has been decided. It's how you can have stability, to know that given these set of facts, this is the likely outcome. And if you go to court with just this outcome, the ruling should basically be the same. And the law may recognize that. But history doesn't. History fights for its notion of fundamental freedom generation after generation after generation, and the risks and the tests are always new, as is yours, as was mine, as was our grandparents. A dumbed down democracy, whether it's gradual or all at once, cannot survive an epidemic of ignorance. Now, it may be an American luxury, granted. to not worry about air raid sirens, to not worry about really foreign invasions, to not worry about the military taking over our country. There are places in the world right now which are horrific places, civil rights and otherwise, to be and live. Some of you are from those places. Some of you still have family in those places. But civilizations have fallen, literally. Not how you kids use literally. Right? For fun, again, my students know this, just for fun later, go to Webster's and look up the definition of literally. You have so misused that term. Like, I literally jumped off the building. That Webster's now has an alternate definition of literally, and it is figuratively. Even Webster, him or herself, said, I give up. But throughout recorded world history, including civilizations, methods and means of government within your living family's lifetimes, have fallen because of the vacuums that are created by want and privation, that are created by voids, sometimes purposeful, sometimes not, of insecurity and fear, where the people neither know nor understand who is responsible for whatever we're talking about. And those vacuums are filled almost always by the bad, not the good, and sometimes by the evil and the unholy. So you are the vacuum antidote. You are the rescue squad. And if you don't feel it now, if you don't realize it now, I hope before you leave this place, so you can make maximum use of a place like this, that you spend some time figuring that out. What we do not know can really hurt us. But you are the protector against the tearing down of objective fact. You are the protector against the tearing down of objective fact. You are the people, its wit and its wisdom. And that, to me, I would submit to you, is the value of this education of yours. And the value of this place. That value is the type of freedom that we've been talking about. Freedom from the noise, freedom from the cosmetic, freedom from faction, lie, gossip, smear, freedom from junk fact, freedom from junk conclusion, from television gurus, from internet diagnosticians, freedom from the fixation of celebrity, the anxiety of status, from the willful lack of interest in history, an utter reluctance to reflect on life, a contempt for those who have fallen as different from ourselves. Freedom from the belief that my life is any more deserving than yours. Freedom in the end from the fear, the freedom that is a self-governing, capital P, people. Freedom to live a good life. What else are you doing here? Freedom to live a meaningful life, a life of purpose, a life of consequence, and to leave a better life for those tomorrow. Your life has to be, at least in small part, about doing just that, and your education in this place has to be learning to make that so. Within or without your major or majors or minors. To explore, to wonder, to be poets. in a land where we truly are a self-governing people. All right, so maybe you're doubting me, wondering whether you are destined to do this or have any interest in do this. After all, saving the world is not for everybody. But I submit to you that if you came here today, apart from the sandwiches, you are so destined, and that you have proof of that on you, most of you should anyway, right now. Don't look like you believe me. Let YouTube reflect that I am scanning the room, and it is a very skeptical crowd. Great students, like great people with a capital P, they have the tendency to doubt and the capacity to believe in equal measure. So I don't blame you for your hesitation. My students know this already. Bless you. That'll be on YouTube too. You have the proof on you right now. Anybody want to guess what it is? Panther ID. You know, not bad. And if this were on the Panther, get Dr. Rosenberg in the room. I want to put something on the Panther ID. No, but that's pretty good. What's your name? Last name? Mr. Gifford. Okay, pretty good. No, but good. Not the smartphone. Every one of you should have this on you, although more and more y'all don't, but you should. What's your name? Last name? Passius. What's your guess? Social Security card, also not a bad guess. Not too far away from where I'm going, both of you. Okay, now we're just getting into every form of ID that we we have. My passport, my library card, my not bad. Yeah, what is the proof that you have on you that yes, you are destined? Right? FIYou, you are destined to save the world. As proof of the fact that you're here today. Yes, what's your name? Last name? Smith. Miss Smith, and your name was? Miss Workhauser? Heiser? Which one? Workhauser. What you got for me? Is this something that's a thing. But it's good to have the mind and air in the lungs. I don't want you to not have those things. You got another one, Gifford? A pen is good and mighty also, but this is more storific. This is more tangible. What's your name? Miss Dulce? Yeah. Okay. No, but you have to have those, right? You already know this. He's an honor student. No. Last one. What's your name? Mr. Thorpe. There is a piece of paper that you should have on you that proves that you are in the right place at the right time. Everybody take out a $1 bill. Take out $1. If you don't have one, look on at the person next to you. And this is an interesting social experiment about how many people don't have money. You have to have money on you. Okay? If you don't have one, look like she's a winner. Like, I have one. It's only $1. Yes, if we could compound it and save one every day. If you don't have one, please look on. No one in that row has $1? Okay, good. So huddle together. Turn the $1 on its reverse side. The Great Seal, the front of it is to the right. The reverse of the Great Seal is to the left. That's where I want you to look, at the reverse of the Great Seal. Okay. See the pyramid? Right? It has 11 levels to it, representing the original 11 colonies that in the Declaration of Independence became the original 11 free and independent states, ultimately uniting to be an informed United States of America. Above the pyramid is God's watchful eye, and above that the words annuit coeptis. Right? He or she or it, God, favors our undertaking, favors the undertaking of a new nation. See how the pyramid is split? The pyramid is unfinished. The pyramid was intended to be unfinished. The country is intended as that experiment to remain unfinished, to be able to keep doing what we're doing, meeting and talking and reading and studying and thinking and expressing, to live out that moral code that says how a society treats its outcast. The least among it says perhaps the most about the type of society that we are and yearn one day to become, in class and out, to form that more perfect union. This country is nothing more or less than that grand experiment that has, in good times and rough times, but still always America, has lit the world for 2.5 centuries. Who came here from somewhere else, directly, or your parents or their parents? Okay, basically the entire room. My family, like yours, was part of that experiment too. Fingerhut, my last name, Fingerhut, means thimble. Right? Hut for a finger. My ancestors were tailors. With the clothes on their back, they came through a storm. And those who did not die wanted a better life, and they wanted it here with us. Pretty impressive. They made it to the New World. It is happening still, even now, for you. You are here. I'm glad I came here today. I feel a little better already. I'm glad you came as well. I hope at least some of you, and others, I hope I've at least planted the seed to convince you that your superpowers are real. And that you will, as an informed, engaged citizen of the world, save that world. Don't be scared. You can do it. Just be yourselves and engage. I believe in you. I welcome you to that new world, and I thank you very much for saving it. And it's good to do that in advance so you don't feel the pressure of being in the booth and thinking people are behind you and wanting you to get out of there. Do what Justin Timberlake did and take a picture of yourself in the booth. I think other people have done that as well. There are a lot of little laws that you don't even know, okay, that we're not supposed to be breaking, and that's one of them. That's loaded with all sorts of things. The basic question was, well, you know, North Koreans seem happy living in North Korea, so who are we to tell them essentially what's going on? There's a speech you should look up. It was by Justice Anthony Kennedy. It was in 2002 or 3 in San Francisco to the American Bar Association. And part of it, he talks about our criminal justice system and how we too often turn our back against the inmate once the prison door closes. And that was part of the discussion. But the other part goes to your question, which is about the dangers of relativism. And there are certain things that are better than other things. Just because 90 miles away in Cuba, plenty of tremendously awesome people have learned to live with the rationing. Doesn't mean that that's a better life. Right? So you picked a pretty strict regime to say, who are we to tell them? I only speak for myself. Okay? But I am confident as much as I am breathing that the American values of a democratic republic are by and large better than the totalitarian, dictatorial, vicious, non-human rights oriented, no expression, creativity, internet. Need I go on? But these are decisions you have to make for yourself. And I don't know if I would fix North Korea unless they're threatening us particularly before I fix Sweetwater, before I fix our home, before I fix America. Although there are plenty of places in the world that, should you want to spread your wings, take your best to them, they'll benefit from you as well. It was my goal not to be political here today. A week from today, by nighttime, we're going to have a new president of the United States. Okay? One way or another, And everything is going to unfold from there as however it is going to unfold. I care, but I'm not afraid because of you. There's no reason to be afraid because of you. There is no reason to be afraid. We are a self-governing people. That's not just chalk talk. You run this country. And as long as the core in these couple square blocks here in North Campus and engineering and downtown, that the president and his staff provide for us, and the legislature and the appropriations and the Board of Trustees and everybody else. I'm not afraid. I care, but I know, and that's why I had to be here with you today. I had to hear myself say it, and I had to look some of you in the eye and understand that you have my back. That may be, about the wording of amendments and what they're really after, and that's why it's important to go read them and look at them and vote your heart and vote your conscience. But today is about you. Today isn't about the election per se. Today is about empowering you to understand that nothing happens without your say-so. In the end, nothing happens without your say-so. What do you think, E? Should we wrap it up? Okay. Thank you guys for coming today. Appreciate you.